world champion.
We all know the story, or familiar with it in some way. At 17, Maria Sharapova burst on the tennis scene after defeating #1 seed and two-time defending champion Serena Williams in the final at Wimbledon. This feat launched Sharapova into tennis superstardom, racking up sponsorship deals with Canon, Tag Heuer, and Motorola. Even Land Rover, Porsche, Evian, Gatorade, Sony, and Cole Haan would eventually team up with the Sharapova brand. It would also be the first time she held the title as the world's highest paid female athlete, a title she would hold for the next 12 years. Fast forward throughout those years, and Sharapova had accomplished almost everything there was to accomplish on a tennis court. She'd won over $37 million in prize money at this point, a majority of which came from winning the career slam, meaning she won all 4 of tennis's biggest tournaments at different times in her career, 2 of which came from what many believe to be on her worst surface when she first started on tour, on a clay court at the French Open. She even called herself a cow on ice after a match in 2007, despite winning it. She won the season-ending championships in 2004 after defeating Serena in that final, won an Olympic silver medal at the 2012 London Games, and even became world #1 at the age of 18 in 2005. Life seemed pretty good for the 28-year-old Russian. During the 2016 Australian Open, Sharapova was ranked 5 in the world and displayed some of her best serving stats post-shoulder surgery. She went into the quarterfinals having hit 51 aces to only 17 double faults, which is a shot that can be quite the Achilles heel for her.
Did that serve bounce?
She'd come to face a familiar foe in that round though, a very familiar foe indeed, none other than Serena Williams. It was an exciting first set, but this match turned out a lot like their other matches turned out, with Williams pretty much crushing Sharapova. She crushed her in the final there back in 2007, she crushed her at the Olympics in 2012, and pretty much crushed her everywhere else on tennis's biggest stages. Still, Sharapova's 2016 campaign looked promising. She was bidding for a 3rd major at that year's French Open in May, and was coming off a well-played tournament in Australia. Not to mention it was an Olympic year, and a tournament all the top players were gunning for. That all changed on the morning of March 2nd. Just before Sharapova was off to practice, she checked her email and saw that the ITF, aka the International Tennis Federation, had emailed her with a subject line that caught her attention. It had her name in it, and it was solely addressed to her. Inside informed Sharapova that the doping test sample she submitted during the Australian Open earlier that year, and also the out-of-competition sample she submitted on February 2nd in Moscow, Russia, tested positive for the presence of meldonium, a Latvian-manufactured drug initially designed for use in animals to enhance sexual performance, but would later expand to humans too. According to the drug creator, Ivars Calvins, the drug was made to increase the capacity of the arteries in the body, which would allow oxygen to carry throughout it much easier. As more information became available about the drug, we'd soon come to find out that meldonium was used by Soviet soldiers to increase their endurance in the high altitude levels of the Afghanistan mountainous terrain. Sharapova responded to the email admitting full fault in having meldonium in her system, and even waived her right of further analyzation of her doping sample. She claimed not to even know what meldonium was, but would soon find out that her medically prescribed medication by a Russian doctor, Mildronat, is in fact the same thing. On Sunday, March 6th, word got out that Sharapova was to hold a press conference in downtown Los Angeles the next day, with a huge announcement to take place. Her agent at the time, and of many years prior, Max Eisenbud, declined to say what the announcement was all about, but rumors were swirling of Sharapova maybe calling it quits after issues with her shoulder and other injuries started taking a toll on her tennis. However, the following day on that Monday afternoon, we'd all come to find out that Sharapova, in fact, failed a drug test at the Australian Open earlier that year.
To let you know that a few days ago I received a letter from the ITF that I had failed a drug test at the Australian Open. I did fail the test and I take full responsibility for it.
She said she was taking Mildronat for the past 10 years because of underlying health issues she was facing back in 2006, such as getting the flu, irregular EKG results, a magnesium deficiency, and early indications of diabetes with a family history of diabetes. Mildronat is the trade name, or business/sale name of meldonium. It's registered and prescribed in Eastern European countries such as Latvia, Russia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and a few others, meaning you can actually go to your local pharmacy and pick this up if you live in one of these countries. However, the medicine is not approved by the FDA and illegal in the United States. The drug's manufacturer, Grindex, says it's mostly aimed at people with heart conditions, though it can also be used for physical emotional overload in otherwise healthy people. On an athletic performance level, it's said that the substance demonstrates an increase in endurance performance, improved rehabilitation after exercise, protection against stress, and enhanced activations of central nervous system functions. On January 1st, 2016, WADA, aka the World Anti-Doping Agency, banned and added meldonium to the prohibited list of performance-enhancing substances, which gets updated every year. WADA implemented this ban after a 2015 study revealed substance abuse among 2.2% of Olympic athletes. This action caused a number of athletes to get caught with the drug in their system the following year. Almost all cases were dropped, however, when other athletes insisted they took the drug in 2015. Just before the ban went into effect, but traces of the drug had not completely left their body yet. According to the ITF's tennis anti-doping program, under the WADA code, if you took the drug after 2016, you could face a maximum 4-year ban, with a minimum ban of 2 years. Another tennis player, Varvara Lepchenko, also tested positive for meldonium on 4 different occasions during that same year. The Uzbekistan-born player, who later became a United States citizen, was provisionally suspended in March 2016 after traces of meldonium were found in her doping samples. However, she was later cleared of her ban after she claimed she stopped taking Mildronate tablets on or around December 20th of 2015. The ITF came out and accepted Lepchenko's violation and said she bore no fault or negligence to the act. This was due to the fact that as meldonium gained more notoriety from Sharapova's admission, more information was released on what this drug was all about. Come to find out, there's not a lot of evidence or studies that indicate just how long the drug can remain in the human body. Many Russian and Eastern European athletes were outraged by the decision to ban this substance after just 1 year of testing. Excuse my pronunciation here, but Sergei Sheremetyev, a Russian ski jumping physician, said he's had 20 years of experience in this field dealing with athletes and Mildronate use, and never imagined that it would be included as a doping substance. Grindex gave a statement saying meldonium should not be banned for use by athletes because it cannot improve athletic performance, but it can stop tissue damage in the case of ischemia, meaning a lack of blood flow to the heart. Even Mark Stewart, a London pharmacist who was on the Medical and Anti-Doping Commission of the European Olympic Committees, said the evidence of meldonium's drug-enhancing performance capabilities are, in quote, quite thin. The news of Sharapova's offense turned the tennis world upside down, with almost every player being asked about it. Most players condemned her actions and even had more negative things to say and tweet as well. None more, however, than Canada's Eugenie Bouchard, who was previously hailed as the next Maria Sharapova and a former Wimbledon finalist.
She's a cheater, and so to me, I don't think a cheater in any sport should be allowed to play that sport again. It's so unfair to all the other players who, do it the right way and are true. So, I think from the WTA it sends the wrong message.
However, there were some people who felt Sharapova's admission in front of the entire world was admirable and brave. Even her nemesis Serena agreed.
Most people were surprised and shocked by Maria, but at the same time, I think most people were happy that she was upfront and very honest and showed a lot of courage to admit to what she had done and what she had neglected to look at in terms of the list at the end of the year.
On May 18th and 19th, Sharapova would have her first court hearing in London. The ITF appointed an independent, what was supposed to be neutral, tribunal to hear the case. However, the panel consisted of 3 members hand-selected by the ITF, one of which who was actually copied on the original email sent out to Sharapova regarding her violation, the chairman of the panel at that. On June 6th, the decision from the independent tribunal revealed that Sharapova was handed a 2-year ban from tennis and would forfeit her 430 ranking points earned at that year's Australian Open, as well as the 281,633 Australian dollars earned. The report would go on to say that Ms. Sharapova bears sole responsibility for the contravention and very significant fault in failing to take any steps to check whether the continued use of this medicine was permissible. If she had not concealed her use of Mildronate from the anti-doping authorities, members of her own support team, and the doctors whom she consulted, then the contravention would have been avoided. She is the sole author of her misfortune. So what does this mean? Was Sharapova purposely concealing her prescribed use of Mildronate? The tribunal uncovered evidence in Sharapova's emails from Dr. Anatoly Skolny, who was her primary care doctor from 2004 through 2012, advising her to up her recommended dosage before, quote, games of special importance. The recommendation would specify 2 Mildronate pills 1 hour before competition. However, he recommended 3 to 4 pills 1 hour before match time for special important matches. As investigations continued, more findings would soon be disclosed that Sharapova used Mildronate 6 times in the past 7 days at Wimbledon and 5 times in the past 7 days at the Australian Open. This rejected the evidence that she was purposely concealing the use of Mildronate, as she also believed the rule applied only to substances ingested on a daily use. Once Sharapova's ruling came out, she appealed the decision, citing, "I cannot accept an unfairly harsh 2-year suspension. The tribunal, whose members were selected by the ITF, agreed that I did not do anything intentionally wrong, yet they seek to keep me from playing tennis for 2 years. I will immediately appeal the decision of this ruling to CAS." CAS, or the Court of Arbitration for Sport, would ultimately be Sharapova's last shot at clearing her name and reducing her suspension. At the time of this decision, however, Sharapova would have already endured much online and in-person harassment. She mentions in her autobiography, Unstoppable: My Life So Far, that when she was coming out of the Bowery Hotel in New York in May 2016, a man started screaming at her in the street about steroids. A few weeks later, a car drove by and she heard a boy who was no more than 15 scream at her, "Dope ho, F you, Maria." On September 7th and 8th, a hearing was held in New York where Sharapova presented her case to a neutral CAS panel. She requested that her appeal of the ITF's decision to be set aside, that the sanctions be eliminated or reduced, and that they shall bear all costs of the proceeding, including contributions towards Sharapova's legal costs. Sharapova claimed negligence, and that she had no idea that meldonium was illegal, as she had been taking it the last 10 years.
It's very important for you to understand that for 10 years, this medicine was not on WADA's ban list, and I had been legally taking the medicine for the past 10 years.
According to the hearing, Sharapova says that her agent, Max Eisenbud, was in charge of reviewing the WADA prohibited list and making sure all the medications she consumed were, in fact, permissible. At the end of the year in 2015, Sharapova played in one of the biggest ITF matches of the year and her last tournament of the season. It was the Fed Cup Finals, known now under a new name, the Billie Jean King Cup, which features the top 16 countries in the world, battling throughout the year to win this prestigious title. Sharapova won both of her matches, but unfortunately for her, Russia would eventually lose to the Czech Republic 2-3. If this event is sponsored by the ITF, the same organization that notified Sharapova of her violation, and also the same organization who's supposed to notify the players of any changes made to the substance prohibited list, then why not tell Sharapova here? Sharapova claimed she had no idea the drug was banned. According to her, the ITF sent a catalog of banned substances to all players, which was viewable by clicking through a series of links in an email, a move that Sharapova says blindsided her. It was announced on October 4th, 2016, in an email to Sharapova from her lawyer that CAS had knocked down the ban from 2 years to 15 months from when she initially committed the violation. Regardless of the decision, Sharapova would be handed at least a 1-year suspension, but was penalized an additional 3 months due to negligently and not proactively checking with Eisenbud about the annual prohibited list.
Make sure that he was checking that list. So that's what I got the 3 extra months for.
According to the report, the player, Sharapova, did not seek treatment from Dr. Skelny for the purposes of obtaining any performance-enhancing product, but for medical reasons. No specific warning had been issued by the relevant organizations, WADA, ITF, or WTA, as to the change in status of meldonium. Under no circumstances, therefore, can the player be considered to be an intentional doper. Sharapova made her return to the tennis world in May of 2017, to a tournament she was not only sponsored by, but also had lots of previous success. She was awarded a wild card, which is direct entry into a tournament despite not having a high enough ranking to qualify, since her ranking plummeted and essentially had no rank at all. However, Sharapova performed pretty impressively, reaching the semifinals. This became one of Sharapova's best results throughout her entire comeback. Aside from a couple of big wins, one being the 2017 US Open first round win against Halep, then winning her first title since the ban in Japan later that year, to then getting to the quarterfinals of the French Open the following year, Sharapova's comeback was struck by tons of setbacks and injuries. She was unable to keep healthy for a majority of her return, leaving her ranking outside the top 20 for a majority of her remaining years on tour. After a few first round losses, rounding out 2019, followed by 2 more first round losses at the start of 2020, Sharapova finally called it quits. In a Vogue exclusive essay, Sharapova says that she's saying goodbye to tennis due to her body unable to stay healthy. So no, Maria Sharapova never reached the same heights post-suspension that she achieved prior to 2016. But maybe her time to hang up her racket was set to come soon after the start of that year. Maybe the fight of coming back to prove everyone wrong at the age of 31 proved to be a little too late. Regardless of where Sharapova ends up, we are left with the legacy built by a 17-year-old phenom who broke grounds at the most prestigious tournament in tennis, to becoming a global branding icon, to finishing a roller coaster-like career as one of the best the sport has ever seen.